Hello and happy Thursday, everybody. Josh here with On the Wrong Lead. We've made it to the end of the week. Well, I mean, it's Thursday. Dude, I heard the most appalling thing today. Friend Nance, who go to the track with her and my buddy Ryan Dickey. Shout out Ryan Dickey, rip Ryan Dickey Twitter. But somebody referred to Friday or Thursday, not as Friday Eve, it's Friday Junior. And that was just probably that's how I started my day. And I've felt gross ever since. I'm glad Thursday's almost over because that set all kinds of bad tastes in my mouth. Luckily, got bourbon to wash that out. If you didn't see on Twitter, I have a nice Elijah Craig barrel proof single barrel that my good friend Dan picked up. He works for a wine company, and so he travels all around. He's able to go to a bunch of liquor stores, get. He doesn't really get like special access, but just the fact that he's basically in liquor stores for a living, he just randomly shows up at places when they have drops, and he'll ask me, he's like, "Hey, do you want something?" So, shout out Dan. I'll be seeing him in a couple weeks for a fun beer event, Rare Day that we have at Goose Island, and when I think of Rare, I think of Mark not betting chalk. I don't know why I went with that way, but Mark, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. I had a coworker who used to also use the Friday Junior for Thursdays. She was Southern, so I'm assuming it's a Southern thing. I don't know, but either way, I was equally offended by it. It's a weird thing to say, right? I mean, but no, beyond that, I'm good. I apparently we're gonna have heat in my office tomorrow, so that'll be a nice improvement over the last week, where it's been like 45 in my office every day, which is great. Our furnace decided to die. They had all sorts of problems getting it repaired, and they finally today decided we're just gonna replace the furnace. So I'll hopefully have heat tomorrow and be doing a little cap in the duck carryover. I had it in my mind that I'm not gonna play anything to Breeders' Cup. I'll kind of shut things down, really work on prepping for, and then there's carryovers, and just
Yeah.
I become Caleb. I can't say no to a carryover. So
Yeah. Well, Caleb did
what
let
are you
us
gonna do?
know never let him skip a pick five. We have that pin somewhere. We should probably make a shirt out of it. So I will get on to I will get on and design that one. Funny story. So our condo doesn't have good there's not good air circulation because all of our windows face one direction. So if we open all the windows, right, we're only getting air basically one way, right? Because it's just one side. So when it gets hot out, obviously we usually have to turn the air up a little bit higher because it's kind of tough.
Yeah,
And when it gets cold, it takes kind of a while for us to turn the heat on. So like right now, it is 53 out, and we got all the windows open. It was
wow.
basically till it probably gets into the 20s, we'll have all the windows open, and even when it gets in the 20s, we might have a window open, like just because it's kind of a hot box in here. So, speaking of hot box, Mr. Caleb Knight, how you doing, my friend?
You never disappoint with the transitions. I'm always impressed.
I see you. You're in the new digs there, and I we can also already tell that the internet quality is not as good as your last temporary domicile, but we'll make do. But other than that, man, how you
Yeah.
doing?
Yeah, just relocated to my next short-term housing situation for the next week or so before I can hopefully get into my house. So it looks like that's all finally coming together. So that's a big relief. But otherwise, yeah, a new place here. So managing new new internet and some new living arrangements. And yeah, to weigh in on the most important topic, Friday Junior. No, that sounds like it's like a Carl's Jr. Which doesn't. I don't like that already. So no, I'm not a fan.
I was just wondering, is it a Southern thing? I mean, I realize West Virginia isn't that far
I've never
south,
heard
but...
that before, so I don't think it's a Southern.
Okay,
thing.
okay, cool. Okay, cool. Got it.
We call them Hardee's over here. We don't call them Carl's Jr. So
That's what they should be called. I mean,
oh man, yeah, it's been a crazy week, man. Like I had a procedure done on Monday, real minor thing, but that I had a doctor's visit, just all this other stuff, dude. Work has been absolutely crazy, and hey, I actually cashed a ticket today, hitting that turf pick 3. Unfortunately for me, my I beat the first leg, and of course the B ends up being your second choice. So I probably biffed that a little bit. So I had a lone A, and then the ends up becoming the post time favorite due to the scratch of the favorite. So yeah, unfortunately, the payout probably wasn't as good as it should have been. But Matthew's asking, are we going to the second line tonight or stopping the stream after 45 minutes? No, we're gonna ride out to the end. All right, we never stop the stream short. Well, actually, 2 weeks ago, I think we actually like broke a record and got through a pick 5 in such speed that I started adding races. But yeah, it was nice to cash that pick 3, and then I hit the exact in the last race for $9, so that helped a little bit. In the first leg, where I kind of spread with my A's and B's in that turf pick 3, I basically had the trifecta, and that paid bonkers. And you always look back at that, you're like, well, I handicapped that race really well. I probably should have played something vertical, but for every time you do that, yeah, you probably burn money that way. But I know Mark and Caleb, you guys have been a little light. Mark, I know I saw you fired at the pick 6, and you
took a little stab at it. I was dead leg 1. I did not use the winner there. I think it was the 7 horse. It was
there's the shipper for Nacho Correas, yeah.
For Nacho with Jose up, and honestly I think this entire meet it's just been bet everything that Jose's up on, because he has been just absolutely filthy. So I think he's getting the choice Kentucky mounts these days, and it shows.
Chase saying he's just here for the mountain man version of Caleb. I will say Chase's picture on YouTube is, I mean, it's making me feel a certain way, and I don't know which way.
Uncomfortable. I'm a little bit uncomfortable with that photo. That is, it has to be a long time ago.
Yeah, and then he's got like it looks like he should be tying like a woman to train tracks or something, like in a black and white movie or something like that, All right, maybe needs a little top hat. I might actually. I'm gonna take a little screenshot of this so I can make that happen. We'll take care of that. We'll take care of that a little bit later. But
it was giving me really like barista-y vibes, I guess. But
But yeah, we have a good sequence, a fun little pick 5. But I like playing these turf pick 3s, so I figured let's add an extra race, and why don't we take a look at the first leg of this turf pick 3, which actually starts in race 3. So we're gonna have a 5.5 furlong turf sprint. Your morning line favorite in this race is going to be the 10 Caribbean Wind at 2-1. Wesley Ward sprinting on the turf at Keeneland with Irad Ortiz aboard. This screams like you got to use this horse. Like this horse is, like, right. This is like his wheelhouse. This is his thing. But Mark, we were talking a little bit before stream, and I believe you said we basically just don't bet anything that Wesley Ward's sending out right now.
Yeah, it seems like his barn has been really, really cold the entire meet. You're used to years where, probably not as much in the fall meet. It's a little bit more of a spring thing, but you're used to Wes Ward winning at 35 or 40% or something at Keeneland. That's just what he does. And his barn has not been good, so far this meet. I imagine this one will take a lot of money just on connections and, whatnot. It's also Philly going versus the boys at this point in the year, I actually think the Phillies may have a bit of a leg up on the boys. And she did run nice, in that April debut race, but kind of where's she been since then? I mean, lots of opportunities to run the 2-year-old and lots of good stakes races and everything else that she could have showed up in. Find it really interesting that she's here off from what I think is a sort of interesting layoff. I think she's a horse you probably try to beat in this spot. I think I ended up going inside to try to do it. I think the 2-horse Restore for Dallas Stewart gets Luis Saez up. Luis Saez on a speed horse is always something that I'll get excited about. I thought the last out effort was much was much improved, obviously off the real clunker at Saratoga, and if she runs back to that last figure, she's going to be pretty darn tough in this race. But I think this is one of those races where there's a lot of ways you can go, and I didn't know where else to go. I used the 2. I don't know what I do with a 10 yet. Of the Ward horses that are in this sequence, that's the one that I think is the most usable. But hey man, I'm interested to see how you guys saw this race because I thought this was really tough if you got beyond either the 2 or the 10.
Yeah, I I took the Caleb approach in this race and I tossed the 10, mostly because of the cold barn. Um, and yeah, I do think the 2 probably is the my top pick, probably the horse that I'm going to want the most through. Basically what you said, you're seeing a horse that ran pretty well at Kentucky Downs, kind of, I think came up a little short. Coming off a couple weeks rest here, coming back here has been firing some really nice works, 47-3, 48-3, and 47-2. So I think, I think that this is a horse that's going to be coming in with, couple of races under him, some good works, and this pedigree, although it is a win early pedigree, is just a really, really good turf pedigree with Warfront on the bottom, Uncle Mo on top, right? Uncle Mo's 15% on the turf, and Warfront's 14% or 16% on the turf. So you got a really good turf pedigree here. So maybe this is one that we're gonna want to see stretch out a little bit more. Maybe looking for like a 2-turn mile or something, but. I think Restore is definitely coming in here with a big shot. I think the other short price in this race, the 5, hit that review. Um, is coming with 2 seconds. Tyler gets back aboard, Tyler's been riding really well. Brendan Walsh always does well here at Keeneland. He's at 24%. This is another pretty decent turf pedigree with No Nay Never on the top and Machiavellian on the bottom. Um, I think hasn't maybe been working as well as the 2 has, but I think the 5 has got, at least the last 2 races, look like winning type efforts possibly against this field. So I like the 5 here. Hit that review. I think he makes sense. And then a first time starter, I'm also going to use the 6, Fling Ready here. And yeah, Kelsey Danner, 15% trainer, not really great with first time starters, under 10% here, but a bit better when debuting on the turf. And once again, you're getting more than Ready, who is runs on both surfaces, and Liaison, interestingly, is kind of a bit of win early pedigree, not necessarily turfy type pedigree, but. I thought that Fling Ready was a little interesting in this spot. You're getting 12-1 here. You're getting Anna Biscuits aboard, and you're getting 12-1 on the morning line. So Just kind of was looking for maybe a price to kind of include in the in my tickets here in this first leg. So, I'm going to use a 2, 5, and 6. Caleb, where did you land?
Yeah, I think I essentially, as usual, kind of split the difference between you guys. I'm also against the Wesley Ward runner. I don't, he's going to be short. And I made a comment earlier before we started the stream to you guys, and I'll reiterate it here. When Wesley Ward's barn is hot, I would give a horse like this a long look. But he's not right now. And I think it's the time that you want to take a shot against a horse like that. So for me, Caribbean Wind is a big play against. Got beat at basically 1-5 on debut. So otherwise, yeah, I did land on my top 2 picks, are who I guess would be probably the second and third pick in here, which would be the number 2 Restore and the number 5 Hit That Review. You guys covered all the reasons for those 2 horses, so I don't really need to get into much more detail there. Otherwise, those will be my 2 A's essentially. There was a couple of price horses that I may try to look to include, mostly to the far outside. I did give a look to the number 12 Sharp Swinger. I'm not a very big fan of Practical Joke as a turf sire, but I do think that Joe Sharp's barn is another one of those streaky barns that right now has been pretty hot. He was red hot all through Kentucky Downs, and he's kind of continued. He's cooled off somewhat, but he's still maintained winning at a pretty decent clip here at Keeneland. The dam has produced 2 winners from 2 starters, a stakes winner and a turf winner out of those 2 starters. So there's maybe a little bit more turf pedigree in the bottom here. Frankie Gets Up, who's been pretty hot, went up for Joe Sharp recently. So I thought Sharp Swinger, has to work out a trip from the post, but at 15-1 might be one I'll probably use. Should this horse draw in, I actually also had a bit of interest in the number 13, Sweet La Crema. Again, this is maybe a bit more of a reach, but with a pretty small sample size. Greg Compton doesn't have a very big barn. He doesn't get a ton of first-time starters. He does fine with his firsters. But with his debut turf runners in the past 3 years, he's only had 5 of them, 2 of which have won, and 4 of the 5 actually hit the board. So when he does think that he has a turf horse and enters a horse on the grass, they typically do run, and they do run at pretty big prices. Dam has been very successful at producing winners. Only 1 of the 5 winners has won on turf, but I'm not exactly sure if it's a ton of turf pedigree here. But again, you're going to get 20-1 or greater on this horse, and it's one that I'll probably throw in. And then the last one, I guess we can maybe just touch on briefly, because I'm not sure what what the wisdom of the crowd thinks here. But I guess Josh talked about it a bit, which is the 8 Jack's Promise. Big closing run on turf last time out. Made a decent run at a big price. 6-1 doesn't feel like a great price, when he was 30-1 last time out at Saratoga. But he's one that if he can get involved in the race a little bit earlier, has every right to improve.
Yeah, Caleb mentioned that the 12 horse, who was one that I was going to bring up if nobody else did it, was Sharp Swinger. And obviously Frankie, if you watch Kentucky Downs or if you've watched the early part of the Keeneland meet, seems to be the go-to jock for Joe Sharp when he has a live one. So they're 38% together this year on only 8 mounts. So, obviously limited sample size and all. Joe Sharp is terrible with firsters, terrible with first-time turfers. And the sire is also not that good with first-time turfers. But, it's one of those ones, that one maybe live just when you see who Joe's going to. The other horse I was a little interested in that nobody's mentioned, and this horse needs all the help in the world to get into the race, and I think there's probably a 0 chance it actually does, but that's the 16 horse, Galantini. If you look at the dam actually was a multiple stakes winning grass dam, at least on what I'm saying for notes. So there's at least some pedigree there that she should, or that he should, like this, like the turf going. Obviously in the parking lot, horse needs, to really work out a trip, but you're going to get probably double that morning line price, just given all the connections. Yes, I know it's Bernardini and turf. You can mock me as you will, but there is some pedigree on the bottom side to handle it, with the dam really liking it. So I thought that horse was an interesting one where clearly the horse just didn't break first time out, broke out and then immediately spotted the field a million lengths, and then just was kind of eased up and wrapped up and kind of rolled home. So I thought that horse is a little interesting, if he gets a lot of help to the inside and can draw in.
Chase bringing up something about the 6 too. He said the Dam was a listed stakes winner early on the turf at Kentucky Downs. So the Dam of the 6, Fling Ready Moonlight Romance, was a stakes winner at Kentucky Downs. So yeah, similar to the horse you were just talking about, Mark. A stakes winning Dam. So yeah, a couple different ways you can go.
Pedigree for turf, but yeah.
Yeah, a couple different ways you can go. I'm sure this Wesley Ward's going to take some money, and he's just not been Wesley Ward during this fall meet. So, yeah, I think there's an opportunity there. So, race 6 here. We're going to get to this late pick 5, 6.5 furlongs on the dirt. And speaking of Wesley Ward, we got a 3-2 favorite, Wico here. For Wesley Ward, Frankie Dettori getting the board here, and I think this might be another Wesley Ward that it's not on any of our tickets here. Caleb, this is like your territory, so I don't know if you wanna start or if you want some of us to go.
Yeah, no, I mean, like we were talking about this earlier, and I can't see a way in the world this horse is supposed to be 3-2 against this field. I mean, I don't even know that I would make him the favorite, truthfully. I mean, yeah, he ran 3rd in the Grade 3 Commonwealth, so I guess by the strictest sense of the definition, this is a class drop. But that Commonwealth sucked. I mean, that was not a good field. I mean, Minnesota Ready, you ran 2nd, and Bo Cruz won the race. I mean, those are not exactly, Grade 1 horses that have dropped out or anything by any stretch. I mean, these are, I think Minnesota Ready for the longest time was a Canterbury horse. They beat horses like Call Me Fast, Raise Cane, Richie's on a Roll, and Frat Pack. And if you can recognize any of those besides Raise Cane from his Derby contest, then good for you, because I don't know any of those horses.
My bourbon bottle.
And from your bourbon bottle. Yeah, I guess that's true. But yeah, I think Wico is just a monumental play against in here. He could win if he gets maybe back to his Keeneland race from October of 23. But again, when the Wesley Ward barn is going good, it's hard to beat. When it's going bad, when a horse doesn't look good enough to really win anyway, I mean, this is the time that I think you easily try to beat these runners. So yeah, I don't want Wico at all. He won't be on any of my tickets. I use 2 horses instead as my top 2 selections, and they are both on the far outside. Number 9, Payzone, and number 10, Fort Warren. Payzone is one that I'm really using because as I look at this race, I don't really see a ton of speed in here. And I guess that might be the one thing Wico might be able to do is get to the front because there isn't a ton of speed. I think the 9 and 10 both have a shot to get to the lead or at least be somewhat forwardly placed in this race. Especially with that draw, they're probably going to want to get over before the turn. So Payzone is one who had pretty good speed at Gulfstream, won a couple of decent, optional 35s down there, and then has just really improved ever since being claimed from Peter Walter. Has just kind of climbed his way up the class ladder from claiming 25 all the way up to optional 80 here. It remains to be seen. I mean, if he is this good, I mean, I do have some question marks, but at 12-1, I think that's a fair price in a race where I don't like a lot of the short-priced horses. The other one is the number 10, Fort Warren. And this is a horse that clearly had some high expectations initially, breaking his maiden at first asking for Baffert. But this is a horse that's just had a hard time staying on the racetrack and had a hard time just developing the way that Connections may have hoped. He's been through a few pretty high percentage barns already and, has put together a couple of good races sandwiched by some pretty awful races. But if you throw out the graded stakes races, then I think this horse doesn't really look all that bad. I think it's pretty clear he doesn't want to go a mile. He probably also just, didn't love being in, the Woody Stevens or the San Vicente. So you kind of draw a line through some of those. And, clearly something went very wrong in his last race at Churchill where he broke fine and then, got bumped a little bit and then just totally disengaged going down the backstretch. Looked like he was going to get pulled up and then kind of made a run again late. An extremely peculiar ride. Tom Amos sees fit to claim this horse for 80 grand. And I'm encouraged by the fact that there's no panic drop. There's no big layoff. He runs him back here in just about a month, back at that $80,000 tag level and does not enter him in for the tag. So I'm kind of reading into that as a positive sign that nothing physically was wrong with the horse, just an unusual trip there. Hopefully the change in the barn and the rider switch to Jose Ortiz, maybe he can get this horse to remain engaged a little bit, because there's some talent there if he can find a way to put together. So those are my 2 horses that I put on top.
Leave it to Caleb to find the sneaky baby Z pattern there. Starting 5th, getting the 3rd and first call, and then getting all the way back to 11th and finishing 6th. Like, man. Yeah, I only used 1 horse in this race. And I kind of was similar to you, Caleb. I looked at this race. I didn't see a lot of speed, and I see a horse that's won wire to wire twice, drawn on the rail, in Cape Trafalgar here. Safi Joseph Jr. With Irad Ortiz aboard. Now, granted, the fact that Irad's aboard and not someone like, I don't know, Luis Saez or someone a little bit more aggressive, maybe gives me a little bit of pause. But I think if you look at the races where the horse got out of the gate and gets to the lead, at both times at Gulfstream, I think those races look pretty good. So I kind of agree with you. I think the pace situation is a little bit murky. Maybe I need to include those outside horses, but I just kind of saw this horse drawn on the inside and thought, I mean, like, he's got to go to the lead, right? And I mean, I've said that numerous times and been wrong with Irad Ortiz. So maybe this is another one, but I'm gonna hitch my wagon to the 1 horse here, and that's the only horse I'm using. Mark, where did you go?
Yeah, so all 3 of us are against Wico, so congrats Wico on winning this race. But no, it's interesting that we all sort of were against the same horse, but we're all using completely different horses. Because I'm going to throw 2 out that neither one of you 2 have talked about. I did look at Josh's Cape Trafalgar, but I really worry that he needs the lead, and I just don't think he's fast enough in this race to kind of get on the lead. And I know, Josh also mentioned somebody like he'd like to see Luis Saez, up there, somebody who's a little bit more of an aggressive jockey in a race which kind of seems like it's a little bit paceless. So I went to Luis Saez in the 6 horse, Sahalat, I think is how you would say the name. This is a horse that has some figures that make him a player in here. He's very much an every other type. This is the every race. You're getting Luis Saez hopping up for what is a smaller barn, smaller Midwestern operation. And I think that this horse, if he wants to make the lead, he's one that does have that natural speed where he can go to the front end. And Saez is an aggressive jock, so it wouldn't surprise me if he does end up putting Sahalat on the lead here. I think if you look at those races where he fires the 2-back effort at Indiana Grand or the 4-back effort at Churchill, those actually both are races which fit in here with this field. At least on time form they do. I don't know about all the other products, but I thought Sahala at a pretty good price was an interesting player in this race. And the other horse I went to, and I know, Caleb ended up on a claimer. I just ended up on a different claimer, and that's the 3-horse Principal Carlo for David Jacobson. That is the other, I guess technically it looks like it was previously trained, so I would imagine it was just straight barn switch. I was thinking it was a claim, but no, that's a horse that if you look at the Jacobson barn, he's been firing at 29% this meet, 3-7 in the money. All of them have had Ramon Vasquez aboard. So, this is a horse that he needs to take a step forward from his best stuff to be a major player in this race. But very often horses moving into the Jacobson barn do take that step forward. He's a horse that also happens to be 5 of 11 going this trip. So this is his distance. This is what he wants to be doing. He takes a little step forward here, and he's probably a pretty major player, in this race. So I ended up on the 3 and 6, and I'm fading Wico as well.
So real quick,
I think it's such an interesting race. Go ahead.
So I'm just saying, right? If Chase is wearing a hat like this, right, clearly he's trying to rob a train, right? I'm just saying, right? But I do think that he's going to try and rob Keeneland in this race because there's a horse that we haven't talked about that he liked. He likes the 5 here. Time for Truth for Moquette. Says the horse right to the week goes outside is interesting for Moquette. He liked the Truth and he liked the 10 Fort Warren, so he likes your horse there as well. But I mean, leave it to Chase to go for an Oaklawn Park horse. I mean,
If I get boomed by Julian in this race, I will be absolutely insufferable. No way.
I looked at that.
I love you.
horse.
I love you,
did.
Caleb, but just no way.
No. I looked at that horse. I tried to find a way, but I think that if you throw out his routes and you throw out his off tracks, I mean, it leaves you with one race. But the one race was good. so what do you do? But I mean, I wouldn't say it's impossible, but it's a flat race to me. Like I was kind of alluding to earlier, I think it's a weird race because almost every horse in this field can run on time form like a 115-ish on their day, but none of them are coming into this race necessarily in good form, or the ones that are coming into this race in decent form need to improve and run faster. So it's really interesting in terms of, do you take a horse that's run fast enough to win, but you don't know that you're going to get that effort today? Or do you really kind of go for a horse with some upside or potential, like Time for Truth, who probably needs to run faster, but at least is coming into this race on a positive note? Well, his last race wasn't positive, but the point being is, like, do you take a horse that, maybe is too slow, but is improving?
Russ fact checking us, saying Minnesota Ready never ran at Canterbury, but he was bred by Lothenbach Stables. So
Maybe that's what I was thinking.
And this is good because I can actually quote Russ directly because I've apparently been misquoting him in other podcasts with messages he's been sending me. So I'm glad I have it right here in chat, and he can't say I misquoted him. Mark, you were saying though?
No, I was just saying, Time for Truth, what race are you going back from? The Arkansas Derby or his Maiden Breaker? Because those are the only two that kind of seem like they're fast enough in here to fit. And I just don't believe that Arkansas Derby race.
Yeah, but I think if you cross the line through the back.
Yeah, I think that's one of the two you have to go back to.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it.
And those were 6 furlong races. And I think if you cross the line through the Bachelor, because, I mean, the horses that ran first, second in that race are both, stakes quality horses in Valentine Candy and is it Frostfire, I believe, or Frost.
But did you notice that Julian's aboard? Like,
What's Kentucky?
No, okay.
Yeah, it's Julian, Kentucky. It's completely different.
But he
it's
used
okay.
to be able to win in Kentucky, and he can't do that anymore. He's
only had 5 mounts.
Because he wins
apparently.
in Saratoga now.
Dude, if he wins in Saratoga, I am going to lose. Yeah, okay. So you draw a line through both the routes, and you kind of okay. You get to squint a little. I get it.
I do like how you're playing into Uncle Sully though, right? He said that there was not enough necessary jockey roughness, and you went back to it, but yeah,
we could talk about yesterday.
I mean, I don't think we need to. I think everyone's seen that, and it's clear what happened, right? I mean, It's not to say that. I mean, it's not the first time we've seen it, and heck, we've had tracks run races at the wrong distance too. So I mean,
yeah. My home circuit's notorious for that. So yep.
I mean, it's just I don't know, man. All right, let's move on. Race 7 here, the Perryville. We're gonna be going 7 furlongs here on the main track. We got a grade 3, and you got a couple of short prices. You got the 5 Bookham Dano at 2-1. You got Caleb's probably favorite horse ever, Knightsbridge at 3. You got Locked at 7-2, and then you basically get your price on anybody else. And maybe I'm going to Caleb in this spot, but I don't like any of the short prices in this race. And I got 2 very, very long prices in this race. One at 20-1, one at 15-1 here. I mean, I took a look at the quick look at the.
Was there ever a doubt on the 6?
Yeah, I took a quick look here at the old Brisnet pace numbers, and we see an E8, right, which my eyes automatically gravitate to, but I don't see any other E's in this race, and I don't even see any EP4s or fives. So I'm wondering if the 6 good looking Justice doesn't just kind of get out there on the front end and do his own thing. And I think if there's any other horse that might be faster early, it's the horse just is outside, the 7 Patriot Spirit, who's coming in off of a stakes win, obviously going a route, and then an optional claim here at Colonial, where he won by 4 3/4 lengths. Now, obviously, this is much tougher field here, but I mean, they've obviously thought pretty highly of this horse. I mean, the horse ran the Iroquois last year, ran the Sam F. Davis this year. Won a stakes in Tampa as a 2-year-old in the inaugural. I don't know. I think there's something to this horse, like especially. I mean, obviously Bookham Dano is a legit horse. I mean, obviously is won the Woody Stevens, won the Jersey Shore. But then, the H. Allen Jerkins, kind of went off a little bit, and I don't know. Maybe he's a little, maybe he's a little vulnerable here. I mean, obviously, probably the horse to beat. But man, if Chase didn't tell me don't take a short price on a closer in a dirt sprint, I believe that was his New Year's resolution this year. I mean, like, why are you going to take 2-1 on a horse like Bookham Dano? So I'm going to take the 6 good-looking Justice here. The E8 obviously needs to much tougher company. Has won some nice state bred races, and I mean the last one was really impressive, winning by 7 1/4 lengths. And then Patriot Spirit, who I think is maybe even a little bit more accomplished, and gets Louis Saez aboard here. So I'm using those 2 horses, and I'm going to try and beat all the short prices here. Mark, you're smiling already, so I feel like you're getting ready to just jump in there. So where did you land?
No, I took the opposite, complete opposite of the end of the spectrum from you, and I just took all 3 of the short prices, and I'll just buy them all. So I ended up on the 3, the 6, and the 10 in this race.
Oh, but not the 5. Okay, at least you didn't use the 5.
Or sorry, 3, 5, and the 10.
Oh,
3, 5, and the 10. Yeah, no,
you gotta sound it again.
All
Sound
3
it
of
again.
them. Yeah, you can go do it. It is. No, I tend to agree with with Chase's pace scenario in here. I think Knightsbridge goes and keeps the 6 company on the front end. Knightsbridge has has speed or can clearly sit, as shown in the debut as well. Obviously, the long layoff's a little concern, but I think Knightsbridge is super interesting in here. The speed figures definitely fit and has just absolutely destroyed the 2 fields that he's been in so far. Bookham Dano is a known quantity. He's a very quality horse. Runs really well. I don't know if he's necessarily better at 6 than at 7. I mean, obviously he's 2 for 3 at going 7, but I've never thought a ton of domestic product, and the fact that Bookham Dano got beat by domestic product gives me a little bit of pause in kind of getting single, behind him and getting really aggressive and using him here. I don't know. I guess what do you think of domestic product, and then you kind of have to go from there. But can he win? Of course. Is he going to probably be overbet based on his chances of winning? Yeah, he probably will be. And the other horse that I was a little interested in was Locked, who I think this is an interesting spot for Locked to come back in. I don't know if he's crazy cranked and ready to go in this race, and he is going to be setting a little bit off the pace. But his British Futurity was a really nice race. His Maiden was a really nice race. BC Juvenile, nothing. You can't beat him up too much for that. Now it's become a thing of we haven't seen him in quite a while, and what's the deal with him? But if he took a step forward from 2 to 3, Locked may be extremely tough in this race. So I had a hard time picking between the 3, and I'll just use all 3 of them. And I realize that's the absolute worst strategy ever, but meh.
Caleb, set him straight.
Yeah. I mean, I think Locked is a takeout reducer in this field. This is just, hasn't this horse scratched like 4 times this year, like before, like being entered and scratched? Like, I can think of at least twice this horse has been entered and scratched this year. I don't know if he's
supposed to
having
run a
fitness
Saratoga,
issues.
yeah.
I don't know what's going on, if he's having fitness issues or whatever else, but this just feels like a prep to me. It screams prep to me. I mean, he probably won't be cranked. He's going to have a lot of work to do in the lane. I don't see a ton of speed in here. I think he's easily the horse I want the least of the short prices. I won't be using him. Otherwise, though, I probably do agree with Mark. I think the top two between Knightsbridge and Bookham Dano are really nice horses. Bookham Dano, in particular, by far the most accomplished runner in this field. Castellano fell asleep at the wheel last time and just got going way too late. Love the jockey change to Irad here. I think this is by far the horse to beat, I think. But Knightsbridge is the horse that is kind of unknown. He comes in off of 2 just dominant wins. He was 1-9 in that Gulfstream race last out, so let's not pretend like he beat anything. But he beat nothing by 10 lengths and did it the way you're supposed to. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know how good Knightsbridge is, but I think at 3-1 or 7-2, with having a pace advantage on his main rivals, I think that's a good price, and I think he's a fair bet in here. So I think those are the top 2 horses. I'll use them both. I don't want locked. I actually had both of Josh's horses as like C's. I'd probably be like 3-5 as my A's and like 6-7 as C's. I do kind of see the angles Josh sees. I just don't know if I'm as committed to the fact of them actually being good enough to beat a horse like Bookham Dano, unless the track is really carrying speed on Saturday. But you're going to get 20 or 15, 20, 30-1, so I don't hate it.
I don't know. I just remember I feel like this happens once a year at Keeneland. You get some random Louisiana bred that ships in from like Delta or Evangeline that like hasn't lost a race in like 7 years, right? And gets disrespected on the board and ends up winning. Who was there? There was a horse.
So you're replacing Delta with Indiana and the fact that your horse has lost versus ones that haven't. Okay, cool. I got it. Makes perfect sense.
But no, I mean, hey, that's a nice thing, right? Is I get to put my money against your money, and this is it's a great part of this game. I did see I put it up temporarily, but Chase thinks if the Knightsbridge and the 6 kind of go haywire, he actually likes the 4 horse Houday, which the Saints are absolutely just killing me right now. Because
that's a Bengals thing at Houday. Who dad is the Saints?
Yeah. Who dad is the Saints at 2 days?
Well, well, Bengals are killing me too. They killed how many people in Survivor at the beginning of the year? Whoever is fucking killing me. So.
Whoever.
Yeah, Houday. He likes his horse kind of coming from off the pace. I mean, the Ellis Park Derby figure is pretty big on Brisnet, but I don't know. Do you guys give this guy a look at all?
Well, I didn't, but now that I am looking at him in a bit more detail, I mean, I could see it. 8-1's not the price for me on that horse, but if you get somewhere in the 12 to 15-1 range, he probably will be more forwardly placed than some of the other closers. And while he is coming out of a couple of cheaper races like at Belterra, and he has some of that Thistledown and Monmouth form, I mean, it's sandwiched in between 2 really good stakes efforts at Churchill. So I did kind of overlook him, but I do sort of see Chase's point here. I still think it's the top 2 probably win this race, but I think he has more of a shot than I originally gave him.
So we're okay taking Houday because he's not at a short price. Is that the Chase logic here? We're only not allowed to take closing sprinters at short prices. Got it. I looked at him for a really long time. I tried to make a case for Houday, and I just couldn't. I think that the top 2, one of them is going to show up, and it just are way too tough for him. And I think a same sort of situation to somebody like Dillinger. We've seen years where Safi ships to Keeneland and does okay, but he so far this year hasn't, and I think Dillinger's best is just quite a cut below what's going to be needed, to win this race. I would have loved to have seen a lot more of him out of that allowance at Saratoga, where I was actually really interested in him that day. So he just needs to take a pretty big step forward. Maybe he can, but I really think it goes to the top 2 or top 3, depending on how you look at the race.
Yeah, I think he's too slow, and he was supposed to win the last race. So
Yeah,
not for
he was
me.
supposed to win both of his last two, right?
Yeah, so not for me. But if you like the connections, you'll get paid enough to take a shot.
All right, race 8. Gonna be going to mile 16th here on the turf. This is leg 2, the turf pick 3. And 3-year-olds and up, which have never won 1800 3 times, all those things. Shout out to Chase for not reading the conditions, because I'm also not going to read the conditions here. And your morning line favorite is going to be the 10, Dripping Gold at 3-1. You got Taking Candy at 7-2, Irish Aces at 9-2, Peros at 8-1. You got double digits on everybody else. Yeah, of the short prices, I really the only one I was really interested in was the 12, Taking Candy here. And I just think that this is the horse that's been running against better than a lot of the horses have in this race, and has been running well. Is every other type, like Mark likes to point out, and this is the other. Is got tactical speed. Has gone on the front end. I think he does probably his best running sitting just off with the target. But I do think that this might be a spot where he does get a target in probably my lone B horse here in the 8, Mr. Muldoon. Um, you know, uh, Needs to really improve, I think, speed figure wise. Obviously, the race 2 back at Canterbury was very good, but then kind of came back and I think regressed a little bit. But I mean, has speed. I mean, we're talking 22-1 going a mile on the turf is blazing. So, um, yeah, we'll see. We'll see what James Graham has got up his sleeve. And looking at his last week or two, not much, but he's only got one way to go, and that's to get out in the front end. And I know Caleb was trashing or besmirching the name of Canterbury earlier, but I think I'm going to include the Canterbury horse as a B, and I'm going to use him along with the 12 here, Taking Candy, and those are the only two I'm really going to use here. Caleb, where did you land?
Yeah, we are sort of similar. I do I do like Taking Candy. I think that he's fine. I think he has a tactical advantage in a race. Once again, that most of the races today just don't seem to have a ton of speed. So I do like Taking Candy. The Sri DeVoe barn has been red hot at Keeneland. And if you go back 3 back, it was just beaten by Carl Spackler, who I guess is kind of okay. So, I do like Taking Candy. I will say that I actually prefer Irish Aces. If you go back to the race at Saratoga on July 13th, Irish Aces was by far the best horse in that race that day. Got a very dumb ride by Tyler, got stuck into traffic way too late, had to steady, and then finally got clear run, but just couldn't quite make up the ground to Taking Candy. He was even money in that race against Taking Candy, whereas Taking Candy was 5 or 6 to 1. So I think that Irish Aces is the horse that I kind of want out of that. A couple races have passed, so I am kind of weighing that back race a little less heavily than I otherwise would. But I still think they're both in good form. Irish Aces did very well in the Tappet Stakes at Kentucky Downs when he won that race, and then probably just wheeled back a little too fast on a week of rest in the Mint Million, and just looked like a tired horse that needed a bit of rest. So comes in off of about 5 weeks of rest here, gets back to Keeneland where he does have a win already, really good at the distance. So I do kind of think I won't call it a 2-horse race, but those are my top 2 selections in here. I might have a couple of Bs, but kind of want to see where Mark goes first.
Yeah, so you guys mentioned the 3 Irish Aces and the 12 as well. I had both of those as an A's, and there's only one other horse that I have as an A that we haven't talked about, and that's the 1 horse Peros. I realize the Mike Maker barn has been extremely cold, but this is a horse that even during that cold streak up at Saratoga got a win, which does kind of say a lot. I think that there's this is one that they took him quite a while to figure out that this was sort of a turf horse, and now that they put him on turf, he's 4-7. Seems to be getting faster every single race. His time form figures get just a little bit faster. If you just look exclusively at the turf races, and he's won 3 in a row. So and I realize that there's definitely a pretty massive step up in level here, but he's going to get a fair bit of pace to run in front of him. I think horses like the 3, the 8, the 12, something like even the 7, Miranda Wrights, all horses they're going to show a bit of speed, and Luis Saez has been riding really well all meet. Gets the ground saving rail trip. He's got to sit a trip, and he's got to get some running room come to the lane. But of the shorter price horses, the other one that I found really interesting was Peros. But I'm also using the 3 and the 12, and somewhat against the 10. But yeah, beyond that, I don't have any other sort of super cute ideas in this race.
Were there other horses you were looking at, Caleb, that you wanted to use?
Yeah, I mean, just to touch on Mark's last point, yeah, I'm also against the 10, Dripping Gold. I think he is the favorite. I think he's the favorite. He's one that I would like to beat. Not exactly a win machine, only 3 for 19. Broke through with a huge race at Kentucky Downs, but we tend to see very exaggerated results at that track, just given the nature of how it plays, and some horses handle it, other horses don't. So I think you really need to heavily discount that, because based on his body of work before that race, he probably wouldn't be 6-1 in this field, and all of a sudden now he's the favorite. I also kind of think he's better going a little further. I mean, I know he does have a win at a mile and 16th, but he does seem like he's really better at that mile and 3/16 to a mile and a quarter kind of range. So I think he's one I don't really need. One horse I did want to touch on was the number 7 Miranda Wrights, and kind of tying into my previous point about some horses loving Kentucky Downs. Clearly, Miranda Wrights did not. He did not handle the track at all. If you look at the previous 2 times he's raced at Kentucky Downs, they've been pretty easily the worst races of his career. So I think it's pretty easy to kind of draw a line through those. And if you ignore those, I think the form does look quite a bit better. He comes out of a pretty decent prep race at Ellis 2 back, where he kind of broke out in the beginning and had a pretty wide trip, losing to Tut's Revenge, who's a pretty established horse on the Kentucky turf circuit. 3 back, he sat a stalking trip and was able to beat a couple of the runners in here today. Scooby Quandro has won a couple of races as well. So yeah, I think at 15-1, I mean, you're getting IRAD up for Mark Casse on a horse that has a couple of races that I think put him in the conversation if the top 2 maybe don't show up with their best effort. So I think he's one that I think is a good kind of B for me at 15-1. In a race where I do respect the favorites, I think that's one of the few kind of B types I'd like to use. I doubt you get 15-1 for the record.
I will say that that Chase is on the Mr. Muldoon train along with me. And even point out that Russ will like it, although Russ does have a little bit of hesitation, because he'd prefer if Tyler was aboard. But I don't know. I think James Graham rides on the turf just fine, but I think it's been a really, really down year for him this year, because normally he's sitting around like 11-12%, I think, especially because of how well he rides at fairgrounds usually. So really down year. He hasn't had a lot of mounts. Yeah, I don't know. Interested to see how this one runs. But I really like the 12. It seems like we all really like the 12. So maybe that's all we need in this race. Anything else in this race you guys want to talk about? All right, race 9, the other stakes race here, the Ravens Run. Grade 2 here, 7 furlongs for 3-year-old fillies. And your morning line favorite in this race is going to be the 5 Emery at 7-5. And, I tried to really immerse myself into, I guess, what Mark feels like. So, I went downstairs, I looked at my bottles of wine. I had some honey with my tea today, and just really tried to feel like what Mark feels like, because I have a hard time getting around the 5-horse Emery here, and I think probably, we've talked so much about being against favorites. This is probably the favorite I'm most interested in. The 5 Emery. I mean, we're talking. Only 2 losses are in grade 1s. And this is not a grade 1. This is not a grade 1 field. I mean, this is a very, very solidly a grade 2 type field here. I think Emery is just going to be in here, and is going to be tough to beat. And honestly, I think Emery's really only competition is what is probably going to be your second choice in the 3 My Main Squeeze, which just really made me feel like Mark and kind of completed the ensemble. I actually was thinking about growing a beard after that. I have B with a question mark written as probably more of a C type because of really just being the alternative. And, it's tough. I really think that this is just, ran third behind Emery in that test. I don't think anyone was beating Ways and Means that day. And kind of came to the Charlestown Oaks. That's a 2-turn race. So I think you can kind of put a line through that race, and comes back and wins the Dogwood by open lengths, which I think she should have. I don't think that there's anything wrong with especially the 7 furlong, the 1-turn 7 furlong races that My Main Squeeze has run. I think if Mike Maker wasn't as cold, I think maybe this would be more of a solid maybe B type. But then we might be getting into this range, and so I don't know if we want to do that. But I definitely think that My Main Squeeze is in here with a shot. Probably more of a C type, if anything. But I'm not being super creative. I find Emery hard to beat. Mark, where did you land?
Yeah, as I'm sure shocking to everybody listening. I also landed on Emery. I think if you need a single in the sequence, Emery is probably your horse. I had a hard time poking a lot of holes. I think Emery's kind of B race still wins this pretty easily. I spent a really long time trying to make a case for somebody else to go, to try to get around Emery in here, and I just really, really couldn't do it. So landed on Emery. I'll probably have a little bit of a saver to maybe a couple of them here. The 2-horse Mercuria is the one that I most wanted to savor. Just run it, wondering if this slightly longer distance, second time, going it might see a little improvement. But I think Emery kind of towers over this field.
All right, Caleb, if you don't like Emery in this spot, I'm very worried.
All right, hear me out.
Oh boy. Oh god.
It's not that Emery can't. It's not that Emery can't win this race, right? But the only thing that makes her 7-5 in this field are her last 2 figures. And so I was looking for, like I told you earlier, I was looking for a way around some of these favorites, and I'm like, well, let's see what we can do. Ways and Means came out of that race to win, but regressed 10 points on time form from 122 down to a 112. My Main Squeeze, also finished there, basically ran a similar figure. So point being is, Ways and Means is a really good horse. I'm not saying she isn't, but did she really, run a 120, whatever it was in that race, when the winner came back and regressed 10 points in a winning effort? So I actually backed it up even further to the the Victory Ride. Yeah, Victory. And the horses out of that race, Mystic Lake got a 122 for running second to Emery, came back and won and regressed 7 points, and then paired that same figure again, a 115 and a 115. Helena's Forte came back and won. Meanwhile, she was beaten 7 lengths by Emery, won her next race, and only ran a 113, actually regressed 1 point. So all of that to be saying, can Emery win? Yes, this is not a very good field. But I think she's going to be overbet off of 2 figures that I think are kind of suspect. Now if you say that, well, she doesn't need a 122 to win, she can win with 115. Yeah, you're probably right. So that's why I have a hard time trying to understand exactly.
That was exactly like it. I did the same thing.
That's
exactly
why.
the case. My
Yeah.
thing is,
I was going to ask
she
you.
can regress 10 points and still win. Like,
Well, I was going to ask you
Yeah.
because like I'm like everything you're saying sounds like all right. It sounds like we're looking at 115 range. Like who else in this field has run those 115s?
that's how I
Yeah, and
landed
that's the
it too,
problem.
then.
Is that basically, well, funny enough, that too I think is also a garbage figure.
Oh, is that also a terrible figure?
Because
No,
Too
Patraris
Sharp
is
just
that
came
bad?
to run maybe a week ago or a couple days ago, won and regressed 9 points in a winning effort. So again, I'm skeptical of a lot of the figures that are coming out of some of these races. So I don't know what, especially some of the Saratoga figs toward the end of the year just seemed like they maybe went downhill a little bit. So that being said, yeah, I mean, Emery probably does win this race, but I'm going to have at least one ticket where I'm fairly spread trying to beat her in the event that those figures aren't legitimate. And for some reason, she shows up with a B- or C+ race and somebody else improves. I'm not going to go into much detail here, but the horses I think with a shot to pull the upset would be the three, my main squeeze, who, if you throw out 2-turn races, including 7 furlongs at Charlestown, her form looks quite a bit better. I think the 6, VV's Dream, I think this was a pretty hyped horse for one period of time, local Kentucky horse that was kind of climbing the ladder and then looks like just hit a wall trying to go too far against horses that were just too good. I think the cutback here makes sense. I mean, she's by Matoli, who was obviously a great sprinter. So I think the cutback makes sense. I just wish the McPeak barn wasn't quite so cold. The number 7, Nick's Palace, is another one who's coming in off of a pretty impressive win. Was able to close into slow fractions last time to get the job done. Looks like one that actually is ascending in her figures in her form cycle, so maybe sitting on a new top end here. And the last one is the only horse that actually has a figure that could beat Emery if Emery doesn't show up, is the 10, Holland Ice. And it's really just one figure earned at Gulfstream. It's hard to say if it's a bad figure or not because she won by 9 lengths, but I do think that she's one that, on her day would be a handful for everyone in this field besides Emery. I'm not really, maybe she didn't handle Charlestown. That is 2 turns. But beyond that, I'm not totally sure what to make of Holland Ice, but I tend to think if she's alive, it would be a different jockey aboard than the Juan Machado. But at 12-1 with one figure that's good enough to win this race, she'll make one of my backup tickets as well.
Chase has dreamed up a scenario where Fibber sends from the rail and they let him walk on the front.
Fibber? Is that a fib?
Well, he said Fibber, and I thought I was lying at some point because I definitely did not take a look at Fibber here. But he thinks if Fibber doesn't go, that basically Emery gets the lead and kind of walks over the field. And then Mark Captain said he had a dream where he won the lottery, but here we are. So, yeah, I didn't see that. I didn't see that pace possibility at all with Fibber. But when sometimes you need a second set of eyes and maybe eyes that are under the influence of something. Chase is the guy you go to. He'll be able to. He sees things that no one else sees, and I mean, I guess that could be a good thing and a bad thing depending on who you ask at the time. But, all right, why don't we close this out here then? Race 10. We're gonna be going a mile on the turf here, and this is going to close out the pick 5. It's also going to close out the turf pick 3. We're going to scoop both of them, right, and buy into the BCBC with the cash. That's the plan. But your morning line favorite is the 3 running away at 9-5. Wesley Ward, Gerardo Corrales. Came up just short at Saratoga over the summer. Finishing second by a half length while being on the lead in that race. I got a question mark next to that horse. I'm not entirely sure what to do with that horse because, I mean, call me old-fashioned, but when I see Wesley Ward running a horse 2 turns, I kind of shy away a little bit. So I got a question mark. I don't think I'm using... I also think if a horse like the 13 Jewish Mother draws in, I think that's probably the speed horse you kind of want if you're going to use one. So I know Mark's questioning because I think he sees Julian R. Leperoux aboard, and I say speed horse, and he just gets even more squinty.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I thought he was or she was an interesting horse on the outside if she gets in, but really, I think the horses I'm most interested in, of the horses that have starts, I think the 7 Evelyn Louise here for Vicky Oliver, I thought pretty interesting. Obviously, Vicky Oliver having a bit of a down year, but she always does well here at the Keeneland meet. She's winning at 15% right now, and if you look at the stats, she generally does better on the turf. And apparently, she does well with this sprint route move. So, taking this horse and stretching horses after a couple sprints out. Obviously, distance pedigree on the top, right? You got Caravaggio by who's a Scat Daddy sire there, and so distance I think on the turf not a problem there. The factor is more of I think a sprinter type pedigree, maybe 1 turn mile kind of thing. So maybe we're kind of stretching the limits of the pedigree here a little bit. But Caleb, what do I see?
You either see G. Watts Humphrey or Alone Speed somewhere.
I see G. Watts Humphrey owned.
That's my boy.
Yeah, there we go. Caleb. I mean, he probably gets what half of his wins at during the Keeneland meet. So as an owner, so
He does.
yeah, I don't know. I thought this is of the horses that had starts. I thought the 7 was a bit interesting here. Junior gets aboard, who in limited size has been rode well here at Keeneland. I think there's a first time starter that's really interesting in the 2, Judith here. Irad Ortiz getting aboard for Jonathan Thomas, not something you see very often. I'm sure Mark could probably pull even more exact stats because I don't got anything for the last 2 months. But Jonathan Thomas, 18% with first time starters, 22% when running on the turf. And you look at the turf pedigree, you got Speightstown on top, which can run on both surfaces. And then Monarchos, who has become a pretty okay turf sire, winning at 12%. Both of them maybe leave a little bit to be desired there on first time winning with turf, but the dam here, Informed Decision, has produced 3 turf winners from 5 starters, and the three winners that she's produced were on the turf. So I do think that there's some turf pedigree here. Jonathan Thomas, small barn, but every time he runs a horse, I think it's live. He's winning at 20% this year. The fact that Irad gets aboard, I think, is the plus here. Really, really like Judith in this spot. I think this is a well meant first timer here. And then I believe I had another B, and that's the 8 High Breeze. And really, this is kind of hey, this horse is 12-1, and this is more of a connections play here for me. You have a horse that completely missed the break and just had an awful trip in that Laurel race, and was able to close and finish 4th by 2.5 lengths there. But what I love to see is Grand Motion. First time at a route, 22%. Second career race, 21%. The fact that he's shipping this horse here to Keeneland, I think, is a good thing. And you get Luis Saez aboard, so you know that the horse is going to get out of the gate well and is going to get good position here. So really, really like the High Breeze here. I think Speightstown, once again, we're maybe a little distance limited there, but you got Ghost Sapper on the bottom, which definitely has got some 2-turn pedigree there. And this is another very productive dam. 7 starters, 5 winners, 3 of them winners on turf. I thought the 8 High Breeze here made a ton of sense. That was my only that was my lone kind of B here. But I'm going to use the 7 as an A. I'm going to use the 2 as an A. I'm going to use the 8 as a B. And I guess I'm kind of curious if any of you guys are going to look at this 3 at all, because I kind of don't know what to do with it, right? Like, horse ran fine in debut. I think the pedigree tells you that this is a horse that wants to go 2 turns, but I don't know. I'm not entirely sure here. Caleb, where did you land?
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point. I had the same struggle with running away. I don't normally like Wesley Ward routers. I don't like them, when they've only debuted once and then kind of come back way later. But this horse ran fine at Saratoga. I mean, for a different barn, I wouldn't have any second thoughts about using this horse. I like Corrales in general. He has not been getting many mounts so far at Keeneland, but I thought that race was completely fine. And I also think, if I remember right, I don't have the stats, so I could be wrong, but I feel like remembering that speed was not good early at Saratoga on the turf, especially on routes. I thought it was kind of tough to wire. So for a 2-year-old to go out there, open up to put away the other speed and then get caught, just late by a Chad Brown runner. I mean, I thought that was a fine race. So as much as it kind of pains me, I do think the horse probably needs used in some form or fashion. But maybe not, but not a single, and is a horse that I'm going to use and recognize that it's inefficient for me because I'm not going to single it. It is going to be an underlay, and it is going to be bet more than I give it its chances to win. But given some of the stances I may take elsewhere in the sequence, I think this is one of the Wesley Wards I can't totally fade. Mark, you were going to say something?
No,
sorry,
go ahead.
Yeah, so I guess your other horses, Josh. I mean, I do like the 8. That's actually my top pick. Is top High Breeze. Got murdered at the break on debut. Grand Motion doesn't frequently win first time out anyway. He's much better second time out, and he's much better going sprinter route. With a French bred horse with all the route pedigree on the bottom half, has some speed on the top, but I think this horse should easily get this mile here. I do like High Breeze quite a bit in here. I agree with you about Evelyn Louise, the 7, but I thought this was a tough race. I thought there was a lot of ways you could go. I'll just maybe talk about one or two others, perhaps. I mean, I'm sure Mark probably has this horse as well, so maybe this will be somewhat of a segue into his picks. But why is the 5 30-1? I mean, I'm not saying I think the 5 is your most likely winner by any stretch, but it's a race that feels pretty wide open. And, his race 2 back at Ellis is the fastest race. The second or third fastest race in the field on time form anyway, where he had a 90 time form figure. And the 81 Brisnet figure is also, completely, fast enough to win this race, or at least in the conversation for the short list. Again, he just didn't really handle Indiana Grand or Kentucky Downs. No issue there. And it looks like he broke slow and probably just needed his debut race. So I'm not going to sit here and say you must use this horse. He's the most likely winner. I love him. He's going to make my day. But 30-1 is silly on this horse. I mean, this horse should be, 15-1, 12-1. I mean, I would even see him at 10-1, less than that. I would still use this horse. So I think that's an extreme value play that's going to make most of my tickets, simply because of, I think, the value it'll offer me. Thoughts, Mark?
I don't hate it. No, I mean, that 2-back race does make a lot of sense. And I think the 5 is super usable, especially anywhere near that price.
Okay. Yeah. And then I guess the only other horse I would touch on is maybe the 6, 9-2, not a sexy price for a field that feels this wide open. This horse does feel a little exposed, To me, I can't justify using the 6 at 9-2 when the 5 is sitting there at 30-1, and they look the same to me. So I do think, there's a really, really nice pedigree on the 6. She's bred to be a very nice turf horse. Is maybe gradually inching forward, but 9-2 is not a great price on a horse that, needs to improve quite a bit, I think, and probably has less of a right to take that big step forward relative to a few others.
Yeah, so you guys covered a couple of the top 3 that I had. So the first off, High Breeze, the 8, for all the reasons you guys covered. I think that horse is very interesting. And if we're all 3 of us are seeing the same thing, there's no way you get anywhere near 12-1 on that horse.
Yep, Chase and Barry both are using the 8 High Breeze. So.
Yeah, that horse is probably gonna be your second choice. It's probably gonna be more like 4-1, 5-1 range, something stupid like that. Anyways, this is Keeneland, where we know the morning lines are an absolute joke. Judith, who I know Josh mentioned, is probably my top pick in here. mainly, I mean, I guess Josh mentioned all the points. He mentioned the dam being pretty good. Yeah, the dam was 14 for 22 lifetime and won 2.2 million. The dam won more than Spitestown, the sire, did on the track, which is a pretty absurd stat. And I think that horse is very well meant. And the Jonathan Thomas stat you're looking for is 22% over the last 2 years. It's only 9 mounts, so it's a small sample size. But I would imagine if you're bringing the horse to Keeneland, you're getting a rad up. It's got that kind of pedigree. It's probably a very well meant, and it's one of those horses that it stinks that it's in the last race on a Saturday because you won't be able to see the board. But if this horse opens at 2-1 or something, it's probably crazy live. And it honestly wouldn't shock me off that morning line to see the horse open up at something like 2-1. And then the other horse I was really interested in here was the one, who is the one of the horse that no one did mention. You're getting Jose Ortiz getting up. I realize Louis got off to ride the motion horse. But I know our good friend Sheldon loves him some, some paired figures. And this horse actually paired the first two time form figs. And if you look at the running lines or watch either of those races, she actually had a lot of trouble in those two races. She was a step slow and kind of never really involved in the first race at Ellis. And in that Kentucky Downs race, she was bumped to the start and just kind of didn't rally late. We've talked about how certain horses don't necessarily handle Kentucky Downs, and I wonder if this is one of those ones that had a rough trip and just kind of packed it in a little bit early. She didn't run horribly or anything, and getting back to a little more conventional circuit, she's getting the rail, and effectively is getting a little bit of a class relief here, just at least on figures alone. So I think Fixin' to be the is a sort of interesting player in here, who I think we're all kind of playing that game of we don't know what to do with running away. So what are the other horses you want? But I'm sorry to tell you guys, I have running away as a defensive B, so you know what that means.
I'm gonna hit the alarm. I still haven't gotten all the alarms over, so I will need to I'll need to work on that here for next time. But I don't hate it because I think, like I said, maybe I'll call it on myself here. The horse can win, right?
Totally.
If this horse was trained by somebody else, right? If this was I don't know, Mike Maker, right? Or I'm trying to think who else we could think of that maybe trains at Saratoga and runs stuff here, but how Dale Romans, right?
Chad. If this was a Chad Brown, it would go off at 3 to 5, right?
Yeah, but and so maybe we're being a little too rough on it, but I think of the short price Wesley Ward horses, this is probably the one that I think has got the biggest shot to win. And I mean, I know this probably isn't right, but the fact that this is a payoff leg, and I think this horse does have a shot, probably means he makes my ticket at least as a B, if not on all my tickets. But yeah, it's just you see that 9 to 5, and it's just tough because there are other horses that have run that. I mean, heck, we talked about the 5. The 5 back ran 81 Briz in that figure. Same exact figure that the other horse ran. And then you look at like the 6, he's got a 78. A lot of these horses I think are capable of running that figure, I think, with a small move forward. So it's just you see that 9 to 5 and it's tough. But I think to Mark's point, you're not going to see the price on that horse until we get there. And if that horse goes off at 5 to 2, because some of these other horses like Judith and maybe the 7 or maybe the 7 and 8 take a little bit of money, right? Maybe the 8 gets halved, right? And we're like at 6 to 1. The 7 is closer to 4 to 1. Well, that leaves room for that 9 to 5 to turn into a 5 to 2, and then you just feel a little silly. So I don't know. Maybe I'm just like talking myself into using a 9 to 5 defensive B, but I don't know. I don't hate the horse like I do like the other short price horses. I think that's kind of where you were going too, Caleb.
I agree. Yeah. I mean, I think that for these kinds of races, like what I'll try to typically do is no matter what I do with, that'll be the only horse on that line. And kind of what I mean by that, if I use this horse as an A, it's going to be my only A. Or if I use that horse as a B, it's going to be my only B. And yeah, sometimes that feels bad, but yeah, I can't in good conscience weight a 9-5 the same as a 30-1. I just can't. So, for me, what I'll end up doing is if I decide I am going to use this horse in some fashion, I got to figure out, whether it's from a budget perspective or a strength of opinion perspective, do I like the horse enough to make it my lone A? And if I do, then that's what it's going to be. If I can't make it a lone A, then it'll probably be my lone B, and I'll probably have 3 or 4 A's from some of the horses we've already talked about. But I won't have this horse with 2 or 3 others on weighted equally. That's just how I try to approach races, where I can't outright toss a favorite, but I also don't have enough confidence in using them very strongly either.
Anything else on this race?
I like the fact of Caleb justifying a defensive B. That made me happy.
Yeah,
it's different when he does it. It's just
okay. So yeah.
That meme. That meme where the guy is like saying something, and he's like pointing, and like the girl's like, "Oh, thank you," and then it's like the kind of like the bigger guy says the same thing, and she's like, "Hello, HR." It's kind of like that,
Got it. Yeah.
Oof. No, there's one other horse I wanted to talk about real quick.
Oh yeah.
It was the 12 Rasuko. Just kind of a horse, and this is more of an angle play for me. Rudy Brissett, barn red hot right now, 36% on Brisnet from his last 11 starters. There's only one finish line going a mile on the turf at Keeneland, so there's almost no chance that Luan Machado gets confused. And jokes aside, I really like the Ellis race he came from. That Ellis race was as a key race. You had 4 runners come back to win in their next start, including the top 3 finishers. You had the 4th finisher also came back to run second in their next start. That was a pretty live race. I'm not holding the Kentucky Downs race against her. And this is a horse that's bred to go longer. And Rudy Brissett is excellent going sprints routes. So there's a lot of angle plays in here. The pedigree sort of fits despite the Bernardini on the bottom side. I think that Ellis Park was kind of the key race there. So for me at 20-1, I think Rasuko is another one of those horses that, if you're not really going to go all in through running away, I think you can really make a case for a lot of big prices in here. But yeah, I mean, that Luan Machado shit. I mean, are we going to talk about that?
I mean, there's nothing to say. Like it's the fucking bonehead mistake, right? Like, and it's not even the first time we've seen it. Like the last couple of years. I mean, it happens all the time. We were joking around. I mean, Naira's run races at wrong distances, and that's like regulated. Like, I mean, like mistakes happen. Like, but like, you say that, and then I think like if I was the person who had that scoop ticket in the pick 6, like how fucking pissed are you? Like just absolutely. I mean, that's just devastating. Yeah. And it's like,
Papa Knight needed that horse for the pick 4, which was worth, I don't know, 1,800 or something like that. Oh. And I'm like, well, you officially have the worst beat I've seen this year.
Yeah.
So that's rough.
I mean, I always whenever I tell the Justify story, or not Justify, sorry, the maximum security story, right? Like, I tell people, I'm like, look, like, yeah, like I lost out on like $7 or $8 grand that day. I'm like, but at the point, the Discord was well into 6 figures. That when you added all the people that lost money on that. I mean, we knew guys that 20, 30, 40 grand that they had to it. Mark, I know, wow. I think you were 5 figures. Like it was just like, it's wild, right? And like shit like that happens. Like obviously that wasn't a DQ. That was someone just doing something of their own, their own volition. And I don't know, someone had posted on Twitter like some like all-time great jockey did it too in the 70s, like, when he was a bug. And it's like, all right, like this shit happens. But at the same time, like how does that it's just inexcusable. Like you're like that's your job. Your job is to know where the finish line is. We talk about how it's the horse's job to know where the finish line is. Well, the horse needs to know where, but the jockey absolutely should know where it is. Like it's just, I don't know, it's inexcusable. But it wasn't malicious, which
No, it
I,
wasn't. It was
you know,
foolish, but it wasn't malicious.
Yeah.
which is like where like we draw the line, right? Like it wasn't malicious, but I mean, as I think as noted jockey trash talkers, like if I had any money on it, I probably would be way hotter. I'll be honest with you. Like the fact that I had no skin in the game, like it's relief for me. And if I would have saw that live, I don't even know what I would have done, man. Like that's I would have been raging. I mean, obviously I wouldn't have gone to the extent that I think some people have gone to write extremely nasty stuff, but yeah, it's just I don't know, man. It wasn't great. I think he needs to be suspended because, like, I mean, just for the integrity of the game. I mean, that happens in Hong Kong, and you're gone for probably the year. It's not going to be that because we're much softer here, but I think it's got to be at least 30 days.
Yeah.
But
Which is exactly what it should be.
we'll see
I
what
don't know what the
happens.
maximum. I don't know what the maximum is for that kind of thing. But it should be. He should get the maximum for it. There was nothing malicious. It was obvious what happened. But you're paid a lot of money to know where the finish line is and to ride your horse to the finish line, and that clearly did not happen. So
Yeah.
And I mean, I completely agree with everything you guys are saying. It wasn't intentional. It was just, an oops. But yeah, and he should be punished. He should know that, and he should be punished. But I mean, can we really not I don't know, install some kind of a light on both wires and you light the right one up for each race, or just something easy, just to because at the end of the day, well, it is his mistake, and he should be punished. Every bettor that had that horse should not be punished. And isn't that kind of an easy fix? Yeah, just install a red light, green light system. I mean, I think even jockeys are smart enough to get that much right.
I don't know, man. It's still like I once again, I'm coming from this as a complete outsider, right? I didn't do this growing up, right? Like both you guys did, and like to me, like sometimes I'm like, why do we even have two finish lines? Have I told you guys a story about my brother at Arlington?
I'm not sure.
No, okay. So we're at Arlington Park, and so Arlington Park is kind of like the setup basically was on the apron. They basically have like not state. They didn't have like stadiums. Yeah, they're like bleacher seating, right? So benches the whole way up the apron in like a stadium style, right? So we're sitting there on the apron in a bench, and it's a race to the first finish line. But my brother doesn't know it, right? And so he's sitting there, and they cross the first finish line, and and what happens after the jocks cross the finish line, right? They stand up, and so his horse is in second, his horse is closing, and horse in front of him beats him, right? Gets the first finish line first. The jockey and a two stand on his horse stands up, maybe a stride or two before the finish line. There's no horses around him. I mean, like he's clear by like 6 or 7 lengths. My brother fucking loses it. What the fuck are you doing, Marquez? He hits me. He's like, what is Marquez doing? And like he's just, I mean, he is livid. I'm like, Fred, it was to the first finish line. He's like, oh. But I mean, dude, he was, I mean, I literally was like, and like I've seen my brother get mad before, but like because like I just wasn't expecting it or anything. I was just like, what the hell is going on? Like, why is he yelling? So, I mean, it better sometimes don't know where the finish line is either. So, I mean, what the classic like the three turn race, right, where everyone's cheering at the
dude,
first.
you sit in there, go to steeplechase races at a Wednesday at Saratoga, and it's so much fun to just sit there and as they come by the first time, look up and down and figure out who the new people are because they're all like screaming their horse home, and they're like, "Oh wait, they're still going. What's going on?" And it's just yeah, I mean, but I think it's different between bettors who've had a couple beers at the track and somebody who's a paid professional who's doing this as their job.
Wait, we're not getting paid for this? My brother's definitely not getting paid for this. So, you guys ever play the return back game? No. So this is something that my friends from Louisville introduced me to, and it's funny because you want to talk. Mark's talking about people who don't go to. I mean, my friends they love going to truck. They probably go. They live outside. They live in Louisville. They probably go like 4 or 5 times a year. They'll go for Thurby. They'll go and then they'll go down after dark a couple times, and they love going to the track. My friend Matt, he texts me all the time. He's like, "Hey, you got any plays today?" I actually felt really bad because I forget where it was, what track it was, but I never text him tips out of the blue. But I was looking at this race, I'm like, I love this horse, and so I text him just out of the blue, and I think it was Frankie Dettori on the speed horse, and horse is going wire to wire, and ends up winning by like I don't know a quarter of a length, half a length, something like that, and we're celebrating. The horse is like 8-1, right? We get a great price. Horse gets fucking DQ'd, like for like a real soft DQ. And I'm like, of course, the one I give this guy a tip, like just randomly, like like he didn't ask me for it. I just messaged him like, dude, I really love this horse, and the horse gets DQ'd. But anyways, they introduced me to this game, which if you ever bring people to the track who don't normally play, is hilarious. It's a pool based game, so everyone, however many horses are in the race, everyone tosses in some money. You draw numbers out of a hat, and that's the number you get. You win by the horse that crosses the finish line first after the race. So after the horses go past, right, and the jocks stand up and they do the little cool down and everything, and then they turn around and they come back to like the winner's circle, and then they come back. So the first horse to go all the way around and come back that crosses the finish line, that's the horse that wins, and that's who gets paid out. Dude, the entire grandstand was looking at us because everybody is yelling for their horse to come back to the winner's circle, to come back, and like they're like, "Why is everyone getting so loud?" So we started having sections next to us want to get in on the game. It was freaking hilarious. So we probably had like 7 or 8 sections in our box seats playing by the end of it, but. Yeah, I don't know. Mark saying like having you people like screaming at horses at the first finish line just reminded me of that for some reason. But, yeah, but we're gonna be together in exactly a little bit less than 2 weeks technically, 13 days.
That's right.
We'll all be in the same place once again, first time since July. So that's going to be a ton of fun. I'm really excited. I've never been to California, so I'm pumped for that. But yeah, I don't know. We're still figuring out content wise what we're going to do the next couple weeks. I definitely want to tap in some of our friends. Shout out to Chase, who was in chat all day. Matthew DeSantis stopped in at the beginning. I'm sure I'll get him involved. We'll see if we can get Sarah El Badwi, Barry Spears, Andrew Champagne, obviously, Matt, who I do the Shot 10 podcast with. And I mean anybody and everybody. We're gonna try and get some stuff together for you guys. So be on the lookout for that. Hopefully next week, early next week, we'll have a schedule out for you guys because we want to get this all kind of figured out before obviously we're on site. Because how many times have we planned to be like, hey, we're gonna be in Saratoga together, like let's do a stream, and then we're just like, we got a little too drunk, let's not do it. Or in Vegas where
never happened.
Where maybe somebody passes out in the wrong bed. I mean, stuff.
Hey, we did the stream though.
We did do the stream, and you consistently asked whether or not we were streaming. So
I was wanted to make sure I was keeping us on track.
But I think that's going to do it for us. Obviously, you can check us out at onthewronglead.com, at @wrong_lead on Twitter. I am at Cherry Drank. Mark is at 2 Turns. Caleb's at Caleb WVU. Thanks again for tuning in. Good luck, everyone, this week. I know we're going to be pretty light betting, but if you're going to be betting like crazy, hopefully we helped you out a little bit. And yeah, have a good weekend. Let's make some money, guys.